Hey guys, I'm gonna start with a little video on how a septic tank works, just so everyone can see it, and hopefully if you can't hear it, please let me know. Sure.
We're going to do a septic system repair on the septic tank that I'm standing over. But first, a septic system is a pretty cool part of your plumbing system. It naturally takes the waste from your house, your sewage, and purifies it back into the groundwater system. Everything that you flush down your toilet, send down your sink, let out of your bathtub, what goes from your washing machine, ends up in the ground in your back or front yard if you have a septic tank. And it does it naturally. The septic system actually filters bacteria and pathogens out of the sewage, and it naturally goes back into the groundwater system. So that's kind of cool if you think about it. No chemical, no treatment, just nature doing its thing. This is the typical septic system here. This pipe comes out of your house into your septic tank at your main sewer line. Everything that goes down your drains and your toilets comes out of that. In the septic tank, it is treated by bacteria. We'll explain that in a few minutes. And a liquid sewage called effluent exits the tank and goes out into an effluent disposal system, which in this case is a drain field. Okay, the drain field consists of perforated pipe, trenches that have stone in it, and soil on top of those trenches, and what's called a distribution box. So the distribution box evenly distributes the effluent to the various legs of the drain field. I personally think the heart of a septic system is the septic tank. That's where all the magic happens, so to speak. And it's pretty interesting because it all happens naturally. The sewage from your house enters the tank, goes through what's called an inlet baffle. And then the liquid that goes to your drain field exits through an outlet baffle. The outlet baffle, as you can see, keeps scum from getting into that outlet. And also, as the sludge in the bottom of the tank comes up or rises in the tank, that sludge could get out to your drain field and clog it up. And then you're really in trouble because you're going to be spending big bucks to replace your drain field. What happens is there's bacteria in the tank that breaks the sewage down to a sludge and a liquid sewage. The scum is actually everything that you put into your drain lines and flush down your toilets that you shouldn't put there. It's grease and oils from cooking. It can be dental floss, baby wipes, feminine products. It's just stuff the bacteria is not going to break down. Those things getting into your drain field, yeah, they're bad for it too. So be careful what you flush down your toilets. In addition, when the guy comes to pump your tank out, he's going to see what you flush down your toilet. Might be embarrassing. Typically, we have an opening over top of the inlet baffle, one over top of the outlet baffle, and on top of the septic tank itself is a square lid that's about 24 inches by 24 inches that can be brought up to grade with a manhole. We used to just install a 6-inch clean out pipe over top of the inlet baffle, and that's where the septic tanks get pumped out of right now. As you can see, if you're just putting a hose down through that pipe, you're going to suck the sludge out here, but you're not going to be able to get all the sludge over here. So you're not going to get the tank cleaned out. Great. Whereas if you have a manhole over your tank, the honey dipper can put his hose down and he can move it around all along the bottom of the tank and really clean it out. You should get your septic tank cleaned out about every 3 to 5 years. Don't want to do it every year. It can overdo it. That bacteria, after you clean your tank, needs time to grow and then do its thing by breaking your sewage down into liquid sewage and sludge. So that's basically how your septic tank works. Feel free to give Apple Plumbing a call if you have any questions, if you want to make any repairs, or if your drain lines or tank gets clogged up, we can take care of it for you.
All right, go away. All right, guys. Did everybody get all that? Okay. Yeah. what is happening right now? Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So that's your basics on how your septic tank works. I don't know what that noise is. I apologize. Why?
Hi there. Welcome to Septic.
Nobody asked for you.
She's real excited.
Very friendly.
She's real excited to talk about food tanks.
Sorry. Hi there. No. It's like, I don't know what that is. Okay, so that's your basic on how your septic tank works. So now one of the frequently asked questions is, how do I find out if this house is on a septic tank or on a, city sewer? One of the frequently asked questions is that, and you're going to be able to find an actual copy of the septic design that was originally installed by calling the city or county that it is in. Most of the time they do keep them in the permit office. They should have the original design as well as how many bedrooms it was designed for. You're going to be able to pull up all that information. Should have a picture of as it was built, quote unquote. And it's also going to have information about the soil at the time that the tank was installed, because as we all know, conditions can change. Okay. So, and then of course, and then when we do the perk test for a piece of property, so a perk test is actually a percolation test. Okay. It's to see how fast water moves through soil. So there's two different things that can happen that would get you denied for, your standard septic tank, at which point you would have to go with some kind of alternative system, which is possible. And we'll go over a couple of those. But basically what happens is they do the perk test, and it's a percolation test to find out how quickly water disperses through the soil. So two different things can happen. Either water does not disperse quickly enough through the soil and it sits in the soil because, again, it's supposed to, leach. Yeah, it's supposed to be filtering. Or it goes too quickly through the soil, which means you're starting to contaminate the groundwater, at which point they will also deny you a septic tank. We don't usually have that kind of problem here. I haven't personally run into it. Well, yeah, if you're building on a piece of land that doesn't have city sewer, you have no choice. So, and again, don't dump nasty things down your septic tank because you're going to ruin it. And then the other caveat to that is septic tanks can only be a certain distance from a well. So there have been in the past, and I ran into this recently on a vacant piece of property that we were trying to get under contract, where in the tax record, the neighbor had put a well on his side of the property line, knowing how big the other property was. And it made it so that a septic field could not fit on that piece of property because it was too close to his well. And he did it purposefully because he didn't want somebody to build on the lot next to him. And you can't force them to move a well that's on their property. So if you're looking at building and you think you're going to have a septic design done and your permit's pulled, you need to make sure that whoever's doing your perk tests and your septic designs is pulling those tax records for that well. And a lot of times they can just be an irrigation well. It still counts as a well. So, and you cannot force them to move it. So, so usually when you get your perk test done, so the same person that's doing your perk test is going to do your perk test and septic design. I know that the gentleman that I use with, he's with Stokes, and his name is Quinn Zimmerman. When he does his septic design, it includes the permit being filed with the city, which is good for 2 years. Okay, so I've got a really fun one I'm going to show you guys here in a minute, of one that I actually did with a client that was on the Nansemond River, where the Nansemond meets the Chesapeake. So it had a lot of different EPA restrictions. And And again, you're gonna find that the traditional septic system is gonna be a lot less, it's gonna be more cost effective than your, other alternate tank, alternate systems. So, and then of course, don't drive on the drain field, please. Okay. I had a client with a piece of property that she had horses on, and it turned out that she had the horses on the drain field and they destroyed the drain field. They were heavy enough to, if that's heavy enough to destroy the drain field, please don't drive on your drain field. So that's why we definitely need to check with, do you know how far the septic tank must be from the well? I do not know the exact answer to that, Leticia. I believe I had heard, I think it depends on the perk test findings of how far that water is traveling, the size of the home, how big the drain field needs to be. So I think it's a case by case basis as far as fitting it into the lot. And I can't remember, hang on. Let me see if I can find it. So. Yeah, I think it's a case by case basis because you'd have to ask the health department, but I believe it has to be a minimum of 50 feet in most places. The drain field portion and the tank itself have to be a minimum of 50 feet away from a well, which seems a little close to me. That is the EPA recommendation, but I believe depending on the municipal, the health department will have a specific recommendation for that. Okay. So here, I'm going to share with you guys in just 1 second if I can get my screen to work. Here we go. I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start with the survey. All right, yeah. I apologize. I cannot get this thing turned around, but let's see. Can you guys see that okay? So this is lot 23 that I sold back in 2020 during COVID. As you can see the Nansman River up at the top. It's on Sleepy Point Way out in Suffolk. This is their existing lot as it is. Okay. So we had a wetlands delineation done as well as a septic design. So, and you see the little thing with the reserve drain field and the primary drain field, that was what was suggested on the survey. Now, and then we get to our wetlands delineation here. So everything in blue is wetlands. Now it's a pretty big lot. The lot goes fairly far out into the water. But there's going to be setbacks in addition to, so the lot was 1.9 acres. There's 1.2 acres of wetlands inside of that 1.9. So these are your setbacks. As you see, there is your wetlands of 1.2 acres. There is a 50-foot seaward buffer, and there is a 50-foot landward buffer. Now, you can't necessarily build the septic in that area. However, you can build the house in the landward. You just have to prove to your local wetlands board that it's necessary. Now, if you wanted to build into the seaward portion of it, at that point, you would have to purchase a variance. So at the time in 2020, 1 acre variance was $32,000. And that is through the federal, wildlife or wetlands board. So, okay, is everybody seeing everything? Okay. They even do it. This is our lovely map from Bay Environmental. They're fabulous. At the time, Army Corps of Engineers was backed up, so by 9 months. So we went private sector, and they work very closely with the Army Corps of Engineers. Amy Conley, who is at Bay Environmental, used to work for Army Corps of Engineers. So we were pretty confident that we could close and in a timely manner and not wait those 9 months. Okay, and then let me see, let's go, here we go. There we go. I don't know if everyone can see that okay. Now this is our septic design. I'm gonna try and reload this thing real quick because it didn't load quite. Yep, it's me, it's still me. It's always been me. Come on. Oh, the Wi-Fi decided to jump out. Okay, so here we go. So here's the same lot. Okay, so because of the wetlands setbacks, you have your landward and your seaward setback. You have Chesapeake Bay Chesapeake Bay restrictions as well as river restrictions. So as you see, this little like fluffy cloud looking thing is the tree line. They ended up having to do the septic at the road front and then purchase the variance to build into that seaward and landward setback. Because the neighbor, and I don't think anyone could see it, see the pier on the bottom side, the neighbor had actually put a well by the pier because he had a pier, so he wanted the well out there because he was cleaning his fish. Yeah, exactly. So we ended up having to put it over here, which is fine. They were able to build, they wanted specifically this beautiful house with these huge back windows because they wanted an unobstructed water view. So they were able to build it they paid their little bit of extra money. They built it into the seaward so that from floor to ceiling, it just looked like water. So it was quite lovely, but yes, it was a fun experiment, let me tell you. So again, the big red, it's not drawn very well, I know, but the big red blob is actually the tank itself. Okay. And of course, all of these lines are the drain lines. This neighborhood required a specific amount of square footage that you had to build. My people only wanted a 3-bedroom home. However, they still had to build the square footage. And because of that, they knew that in selling the home later on down the road, somebody would most likely add additional bedrooms. So in lieu of that, they had the septic installed for up to a 6-bedroom home, since the home was going to be 4,500 square feet minimum. So, because again, and especially in North Carolina, I've heard horror stories. So where the tax record for the house says 3-bedroom and somebody's changed it into a 4-bedroom, and the agent didn't check that tax record, the buyer side, or the listing side, I'm sorry, didn't check that tax record, and that septic tank didn't meet up with the occupancy requirements, and somebody ended up buying a septic system.
Are we supposed to do the same thing every day and make sure we check the tax record?
Mm-hmm. We are. So again, if you call down to the city, they will get you a copy. They might have an exact copy, but they can tell you everything that they can tell you about it, including what year it was installed, because it's a big question that we get asked is, when was the septic put in?
So is this only for someone building on property or also extending on the property?
Both. So if you're going to add on to your piece of property, again, we're not talking about adding on like a great room. We're talking about a change in occupancy. So we're talking about adding a bedroom. Okay. Like we've gone, I think the health department rule is says 2 people per bedroom. And so if we're adding a bedroom, we're adding 2 additional people, and we only have 3 bedrooms right now. that tank and septic drain field was designed for 6 people. Now you have 8 people worth of waste.
What if a person, doesn't tell the tax people, the tax people don't, but some of these small towns, tax people, they're not savvy.
Mm-mm.
So now how does that work when you bill?
So, well, I hang on, rephrase the question, Angela.
So now you want to build, I live in a rural area, so I just built myself out there.
Okay,
So.
but you didn't get it permitted. Okay.
So the tax people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
When someone wants to go buy the house, they're not gonna.
Yes, they will, because you as the buyer's agent should be checking the tax record for the square footage.
Tax really doesn't have the information because the person didn't tell anybody.
Right, but the tax, you can look at a house and go, this thing is huge. This thing is, 2,000 square feet and the tax record says 1,400 square feet. That's gonna raise a red flag to you, because we've been in enough houses that, sure, are we gonna be able to guess the exact square footage? No, because floor plans matter. However, we are gonna be like, one of these things is not like the other. And when you look at that tax record in some of these older homes and they say they're 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 900 square feet, and you get to that piece of property and you're looking at a 4-bedroom, 2,000 square foot home, it should raise a couple of red flags for you,
So once the tax, well, the tax people find out,
Mm-hmm.
the city finds out, they go tax for that extra square footage.
Correct.
Back tax.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're gonna have to give the city, records of when it was actually built, or to know when they have.
So that's a really good question, because there's a couple of ways that it can go down. So either they can be back charged, yes. Will the city do that? Probably not. Does the city want their money? Yes, but are they really going to pursue that? However, what I see most commonly is the city shows off and is like, oh, this is not a permitted addition. They want to see, they're going to make you open the walls. They want to see the electrical. They want to see the HVAC. You're going to have to retroactively pull all those permits. You're going to have to do all of those things and do it right. Because I mean, anyone can lie. And I mean, who is the city inspector that comes out and is like, that addition looks like it's been on there 10 years versus 10 months. I mean, yes, you can tell it's older than 10 months, but how are you going to argue it? You can't. So they're going to try to make sure that it's to code. Okay. And at which point they're going to start asking for upgrades, and they're going to start asking you, where's the electrical permit? Where's the HVAC permit? Where is this plumbing permit? Where is the structural permit? Where is the occupancy permit? At which point you're going to have to retroactively get all of those things, which means opening walls. It's going to cost money. It's not worth it.
Right, definitely.
It's not worth it. So, and the problem is that, we do see that a lot. I had one over in the Bow Creek neighborhood where they had finished in the garage and it wasn't on the tax record. And when I called the city, she was like, oh yeah, no, we know about that, but no, it's not on the tax record because they've refused to perform. They were in a fight with the city. They didn't want to remove the walls. They didn't want to get the permits. And we didn't end up buying the house because they were in a tiff with the city.
What's like they had with Una recently, right? With the stuff and where was it? Wasn't Suffolk. It was
Hayes.
Gloss,
yeah,
way up there.
and the bar were, it doesn't matter if the bar or the seller was a daggone master electrician.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter because he didn't pull a permit, and that almost killed the deal.
Yep.
So that's what they always say, pull permits. I mean,
Pull your permits.
if you ever plan to sell one day, then you're gonna get,
Right.
you could get.
And you're not always
know.
necessarily looking for that occupancy permit. The only time you're getting that occupancy permit is on a new build or if you change the occupancy of the building. Because when you change the occupancy of the building, the health department gets a notification because they know what utilities are hooked up to that building, specifically septic, well, and they're gonna say, hold on a minute, that tank, because they keep a record of everything, that tank is not good enough for this. Cease and desist. Now, the other thing you can do is, this was not my deal at all. This is one I had heard about through my mother. She had one out in Western Virginia where they had added an addition on that was not permitted, and they were trying not to kill the deal. And so the seller went out and tore it down and restored the house back to its original condition. A whole sun porch.
Whole sun porch.
A whole sun porch, like a 650 square foot or whatever sun porch, tore the whole thing off the house and got rid of it because it was never permitted. He had to return it to, he figured out that it was cheaper to return it to its original condition than it was to go through the whole process.
I always joke that if you're doing something on the front of your house, you better pull a permit. If you do something on the back, as long as you got cool neighbors, you might be all right.
You might be all right.
Until you gotta sell it, right? You know, you gotta sell it.
I mean, depending on what municipality you're in, you still have to get a permit pulled for a deck. The only way to get around it is to make the deck a standalone piece where it's not actually touching the house. I mean, if it's anchored in and you got what, half-inch gap? I mean, I'm just saying. You know, remember, you add a window, you add a door. I mean, you have to pull a building permit for that because you're changing the structure of the building. If you have dormers on your roof and you're getting your roof redone and you want the dormers to go away, that's a building permit. You're changing the structure. Mm-hmm. Take away a window. I mean, I don't, well, anyways, but the fun part is you don't have to pull a permit to add walls on the interior. I mean, unless they have electrical in them, you can add a wall wherever you want.
Yeah.
You just can't take them away. You add whatever you want there. You can make a whole maze. Do what you need to do.
I want maze money.
I want maze money.
I want to build a maze in my house.
Right? Does anyone else have any questions? Alrighty, all right. Right, hang on one second. We're gonna flip over to this one and we're gonna talk about, this is from the EPA website. They have a lot of great information and they have a lot of really great seminars on different things, including like when we have, you know, hurricanes and stuff, don't forget that you know, that affects our groundwater, which affects your septic system. Okay. Like, you know, so this is your traditional septic tank, of course, that they were talking about. We have the inlet, we have the outlet, we have the scum, the baffles. Okay. That is a conventional system. This is what it looks like when it's installed in the ground. Okay. Okay. And then we have a chamber system, which is going to be a corrugated pipe system. Okay. Same concept. It's still a leach field. It's just a different type of pipe. It's a different design. So that the chamber system helps, how do I say this? With a chamber system, they can go further with the drain field and pick a specific drain field further away because they don't have to make all of the pipe, you know, have holes in it where it starts to leach immediately. 6 of one, half dozen of another. It's whatever you'd like. Okay. Of course, we do have a drip system that's 12 inches of topsoil on top. It does require a larger tank. And they seem, from what I've understood, is they seem to require a little bit more maintenance. They seem to have a little bit more issue because it is a drip system. It's smaller piping. If you are putting things down there that should not be in your septic, it will get clogged up quicker than your traditional system or your core, you know, or the last one that we were just looking at. So Of course, then we have aerobic treatment. That is where we are putting aerobic, you know, bacteria into our system to help break things down quicker. It requires an air pump because it's aerobic bacteria, not anaerobic bacteria. Aerobic bacteria requires oxygen to be actively in the water, which means you're basically created kind of like a little fish tank. It's got to breathe a little bit. It's got to breathe a little bit.
Crazy.
Because
you have to be able to keep that going and make it fresh for a long time. No.
not really, but so the advantage of this is when you have like a smaller lot, you're breaking stuff down more efficiently and getting rid of more not bacteria, but like the gross things. You're disinfecting the gray water more in this than you would in a traditional tank that kind of just, does its own thing. So you can actually have like smaller drain fields, and it's better for like a smaller lot. It's if you're near a body of water, you can have this system because it's cleaning the water better. Like it's disinfecting the gray water as well. So that it's not as a big of an environmental impact. So if you have a smaller lot, or if you have like a perk test that just isn't quite right, that it's not draining enough water, it's not, or it's percolating too quickly, and they're afraid of groundwater contamination, this is probably the best alternative system that you can get, at least the most cost-effective alternative. Okay, and then we have a mound system. We don't see these here. I've never seen one. If anyone's ever seen one, please let me know. So it's basically it has a pump that it's actually pumping it up into this mound, and it's a trenched field, but it's all built under a mound, like under a hill. So, and it's a filter system. So there's sand and all kinds of stuff under that hill. I would imagine here, considering we don't naturally have hills, it would probably be a pretty expensive system to install. It's probably why we don't see very many of them. And this is what it looks like for the sand filter system. So this is really good if you have a really high water table. So it is more expensive, but how do I explain this again? You basically, like, you have a sand filter, almost like a pool filter, that's filtering all of the effluent. So you're able to just let that out straight into, you don't have as big of a drain field. It's dispersing it better. But again, that is now filtered gray water. It is more expensive and is much more to maintain because you do have a whole pump tank that is filtering that water for you.
So is there a separate gray tank and a black tank?
So in a traditional septic system, there is not. So, because basically it has a barrier wall, and I'll scroll back up.
Does everybody understand when I say gray versus black? So gray tank is like washed water, and black water is like poop water. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
You're right.
I'm going off ship stuff. So
Campers do the same.
Yeah.
Campers do the same thing.
Yeah.
So the effluent is the gross stuff, right? The scum is all the stuff that you shouldn't put in there, and the sludge is all the solids. So basically the idea is that the bacteria breaks everything down and it separates. And if you're using your system properly and your system is healthy, it's kind of regulating itself because, and the tank doesn't actually move. Nothing is moving in the tank until you flush that toilet or run that sink, at which point water comes in, which forces water out because it's a buoyancy system, basically.
How does that work?
How does compost work?
Yeah, I mean, like, you still have to have a system before you go somewhere.
Okay, so you're talking about like an actual composter. So I personally have never looked into those. However, I would imagine it works just like a camping toilet. No, you're fine. I think the size versus a septic tank, I think the size of the composter would, for like a standard 4-bedroom house, would be huge. It would probably be incredibly expensive.
Wow.
And I know that they have to be, I mean, in order for it to, in order for it to have enough room to compost enough, I think it would be huge. What do you think, Tanya? I mean, because I
It would
know,
have to be. I mean, think about, because I've looked into doing compost for food. And
Yeah.
how big of a box you would need
Mhm.
for food compost, like for food waste. I mean, plus all the extra work. I mean, it just wouldn't be cost effective, I don't think.
I don't think it would be cost effective at all. If anyone else has a
Or
different
efficient.
opinion.
Right.
At that.
Right, I don't think it would be efficient. I think you would be having that tank cleaned quite a lot, because I know that like with a camping toilet, like sure, they're great and they work, but get enough people and you're cleaning that thing every other day.
Yep.
I just don't think it would,
I don't think it would keep up with a normal.
I don't think it would
household
keep up with a
demand.
normal household either,
Yeah,
personally.
that's why you pretty much only see them camping in places
Yep.
that you're not.
Mhm. I mean, we used to have outhouses, but then again, you'd have to move your outhouse.
My mom's neighbor still has one.
Oh, no.
Oh, Lord.
Mhm.
Lord have mercy.
In the country.
I had someone, you know, we used to have, our house said no go. One reason we didn't have.
A lot of my family's in Tennessee, the western parts of Virginia, and some people still have them. Now, some, they don't really use them anymore. But
They're just for decoration at this
they
point.
just
Okay.
never got rid of them, they're still there, they can still use them.
Okay.
So we have to-
And then we have this nice, I can't even pronounce that word,
Evapotranspiration.
evapotranspiration
Evapotranspiration.
system. Okay, so
Good job.
these are for specifically for like very arid conditions, like the desert. Okay. And there's an air vent and it's got to have a certain amount of stuff, and you're basically like evaporating the water. And again, like if it rains too much, if it snows too much, if it's too wet, if it's too moist, if it's too humid, the system will fail.
Where are they talking about? Colorado?
Yeah.
You got to be in, high desert.
Yeah.
Rain and snow. Rain.
I mean,
Something very arid.
yes, extremely arid condition.
Arizona, New Mexico, California.
So we can also make a wetland system. That one excites me the most. I don't know why. So it's just,
It's environmentally.
it's
friendly.
environmentally friendly. So basically you're creating a wetland cell, and it's cleaning everything for you. It's kind of like having, water treatment plants that have goldfish, or, whatever you want to liken it to. So I would imagine that this kind of requires quite a bit, and it is gravity fed as well. So I don't necessarily know that it would work here because of the grade of our soil. We're pretty flat. I'm not going to say that it wouldn't work. But again, you cannot do this into natural wetlands. You have to make those.
Maybe in parts of Williamsburg, Yorktown.
Maybe,
where it's a little.
Yeah, but you cannot, this is not for natural wetlands. This is, you're creating your own little wetlands patch in your yard. Okay, now we do have one of these in our area. It's out on Shillelagh Road. I was there when they built it. I'd never seen anything like it. They were not able to put theirs underground. They put trees around it. It is the ugliest thing I have ever seen in my life. So basically what happened is, they skirted the system, by creating, because you need so much land per, basically per system. So in order to build more houses on less land, they made a community septic. And it's my understanding that they have had nothing but problems with it since, because
Imagine.
Yeah, that's crazy.
so now, it's taken care of by the community. So it's 6 homes in a row, and it's this big system, and they're all responsible for the maintenance on it.
What's that, a co-op?
Kind of. I've never sold one of them, so I don't know how the agreement works. I imagine that there's, something in place.
That's how co-op.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like some of the smaller buildings that are, in Norfolk that are only two, like, one's the top, one's the bottom, and You know, I saw one a few years ago where it was the top and the bottom. It was just, you know, basically 2 condos, but it wasn't a condo association because it was just
One house
2.
converted.
And the bottom one was for sale, and the deal that they had was that the top unit took care of the roof and the bottom unit took care of the basement. That's just how they did it, and everything else was, you know, split amongst them. So, and again, this is a, you know, a cluster system or a community system. I don't particularly care for it because I have no control over what my neighbor flushes down their drains.
Mhm.
Right. I mean, you control that's crazy.
I
Yeah.
mean, or if one doesn't pay for the repairs, you have to make up for it somewhere.
Yeah.
Go through lawsuits, do all that great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yep. And that is it. Those are your alternate systems. So we've got a few minutes left. So I was going to talk about how we get the power to, how do you get power to the property? I just looked something else up on accident. So the way that you get power to the property is either there is an existing line at the street. If not, you're going to be bringing it down the street. You know, if you have clients that are looking for rural land, you need to call the county or the city to find out where the closest power is. Again, you're gonna have to call the city or the county to find out where the water line is. If there's city sewage, they're gonna be able to tell you. Now, if there's city sewage at a main street and it hasn't come down the street,
You're gonna pay for it.
you're gonna have to pay for it to come down the street if you want that, or you're gonna be doing a septic. The typical,
Being in a local area, that's what we got, it was the same thing. They don't have Wi-Fi, everybody has to pay for the Wi-Fi.
It's everything. My mom's
Yep.
dealing with cable now. She still has DSL. And in order to get the cable out to her house, she has to pay from the main highway through the neighborhood road.
Yep.
And down her long driveway.
well,
Just to get it wired.
and that's why in a lot of condo associations and new constructions, for Ryan Homes, for Chesapeake Homes, a couple other ones, we see additional quote unquote condo fees that are the Cox cable package,
Mhm.
because they make the deal with the builder, they put in all the lines and stuff for 10 years of control that they can't get anything else.
Yep.
Which is why the condo association bars you from getting a satellite dish.
Very common in apartments too.
It is very common.
And kickbacks.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Gives a check.
I heard
Mm.
somebody recently had an issue with, I guess wherever they were living, they were charging like $200 and something a month for a package that was like $99 a month. Literally, it was like definitely a thing.
It
Yeah.
happens
Very
all the
recently.
time. All the time happens.
And
Okay,
people were
guys.
pissed.
So your sewer line, if there's existing sewer at the street, is typically, depending on how far your house is from the street, to get a brand new sewer line, we're talking about new construction, getting it onto a piece of land, is between $1,300 and $5,000 for the sewer line alone. Of course, if we're getting on well water, we're not hooking up to the water main's a little less expensive. It's, you know, $600 to $2,600, depending on the distance, because you're going to pay by the linear foot for those lines. And the city doesn't come out and run those lines in your yard. You have to pay your contractor to run those lines. And then you pay the city to come out to hook up.
15 to 30,000, is that? 1,500.
$1,300 to $5,000 for the sewer line. And this is just the average cost. This is a national cost. This is not, this is what we've been
You gotta
seeing.
look at the long-term effect of it too, whereas you'll be paying to pump out your septic
Mhm.
every 5 years or whatever it is versus just paying the city.
That is
I
true.
mean, over time, that might save you money.
I didn't think that would
Yeah.
be the city.
It depends on how well you care for your septic system. I know that Jordan Hoskins has, and we'd have to ask her for the information. She has a wonderful company that she is on, an annual thing with, and I think
Yeah.
it's only like,
She mentioned it. I have it in some notes
I
somewhere.
feel like she said it was only $350 a quarter or something like that.
She mentioned. it.
And it includes repairs and stuff to her tank
Mhm.
and her system. I think it's worth it. I also know that, for your water main, that there's insurance that you can purchase through the power company for your main drain lines. I believe I think my mother has it. She pays $7 a month, and she just had all of her main lines had to be replaced, and they paid for it because she had that
Through the
insurance.
power company?
Yeah, I believe it's through the
Weird.
power company. It was weird,
That's weird.
but it's available. All right, so let's dig a well. Okay, your well is going to cost anywhere depending on how deep you need to go. Now here we have very, very high water tables. You do want a very deep well. Okay, you do, because again, we have a lot of, high water table, which means we have a lot of contamination. So you do not want a shallow well. Okay, so that's going to cost anywhere from $5,500 to $12,000, and that is to dig the well, the pump, the whole nine. Okay, and then of course your new septic system, depending on the type of system you get, but a traditional septic system is anywhere from $3,000 to about $10,000. I've seen it cost more. I've seen it cost less, and that is the tank system. So electrical. Electrical is a little different. So if you're trenching, it's approximately $100 a square foot to have it trenched and have that electrician run those lines underground. It's going to be a little cheaper to do above ground, but in order to get a new transformer installed for your area, if you need that, that's $3,000 to $7,000. Natural gas, again, if it's at the street, great. If it's not a street, best of luck to you. So, because you're actually going to pay a plumber to do this. That is who handles gas. You have to make sure that they are gas certified.
Gas certified?
Because that is it's
a whole separate thing.
It's a whole separate thing. But that is a plumber that does that. So that's actually not terribly expensive, because if you're trying to get gas, like, it's going to be the hookup at the street. You're not bringing gas across the county. Like, let's just be honest, unless you're going to do a propane tank, at which point you're going to be getting that propane tank filled regularly. So, I mean, hooking up to the thing, it's actually, this is one of the least expensive ones. I mean, it's like $120 to like $1,300. I had to do it recently because we had it at the street. I paid $2,000 to have a brand new hot water heater, and it made into a gas system for my home. So they went from the street all the way to my garage.
The exhaust, because
Yep, that included the exhaust as well. So, because I wanted a gas hot water heater.
It's worth it.
It was worth
I
it.
love it.
It was worth it for me. Okay, again, telephone, cable, depending on what you get. I mean, you've got satellite, like, what is it? I don't remember what it is. There's one Spectrum.
That's a new one. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the one that's way out there that you can get internet with. I've heard it's terrible. Because, it's all satellite based,
Yeah,
they don't have the lines.
Somebody else too. I can't remember.
So, and again, your permits, they're going to be anywhere from, depending on what the city charges for them. I think typically the city of Suffolk last time in 2020, again, for the septic, permit was a cost of $250, but it is good for 2 years. So your people do not have to break ground immediately. I always recommend hiring a professional to get this stuff done, because you can pull a homeowner's permit. You can do that yourself, but do you really know how to navigate it? Are you really turning in what they want you to turn in? The city is going to be very specific about what they want from you. Does anyone have any questions at all? No? Got it back covered? God bless. That was a long one. So let me think. Well, I do like to be detailed. I wanted you guys to have all the information. So, okay. And then again, what can I flush down my toilet when I have a septic tank?
Grease. No.
Do not, that is apparently grease. It's not even the tampons. Grease is the number one
Mhm.
problem that they see in septics. Grease and cooking oil.
So when you have recent cooking oil, where they put it?
We had a can and then we'd let it congeal and then dump it.
I always
In
went
trash.
out and then throw it
Well, I
away.
was in pool anyway, but yeah, I was like, sisters,
Take
but
like a little plastic bag, put it in a mug. and
Okay.
pour it in them. Pardon?
Next comes, you're not gonna believe this. Another thing that ruins your tank the fastest is, when you develop photos, those photographic solutions. They
Don't do that.
apparently, that is a,
Like the flushable wipes.
yep,
like,
flushable wipes are a problem,
Thick, really thick. toilet paper.
dental floss. Dental floss, yeah.
Never thought of
Cigarette
that.
butts, coffee grounds, paper towels, pharmaceuticals,
Cigarette butts, too.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
like household chemicals. Why? Because they kill the bacteria in your tank.
It makes
So apparently the photographic solutions are the worst for the bacteria in the tank. Like you might as well just be starting over from scratch. You have to get the entire tank cleaned.
let's figure out what it is, chemicals.
Yeah, apparently they're very harsh. I didn't know that.
I mean, unless you're doing all, developing.
I don't know. That surprises me that in this day and age,
Mhm.
darker chemicals.
So septic tank is typically pumped every 1 to 3 years. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Inspected every 1 to 3 years, pumped every 3 to 5. Yep.
Yeah.
3 to 5. I apologize. I said that backwards.
Expected 1 to 3.
Mm-hmm. So the EPA actually doesn't recommend any kind of commercially available septic additives.
So Rid-X is out.
Mm-hmm. They don't actually recommend any of them. So just FYI. And I think that's about it. We've got 8 minutes left. If anyone has any questions, there's people jumping off. Okay, I think I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. Thanks for coming.
You hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you,
Hello?
Leticia. Can you hear me?
Oh, ouch.
What you doing?
I don't know. All right, guys. Oh, there we go. If the septic tank is repaired, do we need a city permit? No. No, it
You're
depends.
welcome.
All right, Leticia asked in the chat, if a septic tank needs repairs, do we need a city permit? It depends on the repair. If you're doing, you're gonna have to rely on your septic tank repair guy and expert for that. It's just gonna depend on what it needs to be done. Most of the time, I'm gonna say no. Now, if you're altering the system or like, again, we're putting additions on where we're having to change the system or we're having to upgrade the system, I would say yes, because you're gonna want a record of that if you're changing the occupancy of the home. You're gonna want a record of that septic upgraded, at which point you are going to want that permit. But I think for a regular repair, no, you most likely do not need a permit. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.
Thank you.